Hey everyone, and welcome to another Fantasy Fiends podcast. We had our guest drop out today. Who was it, Andy?
Our guest was Scott Moon, the other half of Keystroke Medium. You know, we had Josh Hayes on a couple of weeks ago, and we were going to have Scott Moon. He is super busy writing a book, so we're going to have him come on at the end of the month. Just had to reschedule him a few weeks. So you get Stevie and me this week.
Yeah, so he actually didn't come on because he was so focused on his book.
Oh, Scott is a machine when it comes to writing. Like, he's up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 or something. He writes. He hits the gym. He's like an active police officer.
What?
He is a baller, and then he does all the Keystroke Medium stuff. So he's definitely a guy who takes professional to a whole new level.
Yeah, you telling me that just gave me a blanket of anxiety. There's no way I would turn down an opportunity to come be social to write a book. I just couldn't do. Yeah, you would.
I would, and I do.
You would for sure, man. There's no way. Today we have a really interesting topic, one that I think Andy and I are both going to be able to talk on a lot, and hopefully for all you writers out there, you will find this interesting.
And all you humans will find this something that is, I mean, it's super relatable. It's something that helped me massively in my life. This one little trick that totally didn't destroy fear, but it takes so much of the power away from fear. So I'm super excited to get to that one.
Actually, I kind of want to know what it is.
Well, let's do the cool thing of the week.
Yes, definitely. My cool thing is, damn it, Andy, I'm just going to come out and say it. I had to go to the doctor because of issues with my brain, and it turns out I might have a severe case of ADHD. And for adults, you usually have ADHD that just involves inattention. But I have both. I have both inattention and hyperactivity because I can't stop fidgeting, moving. I bite my fingers down to a bone till they bleed. I'm jiggling, and I've been asked. Actually, I got asked today to stop clicking my pen, that's so embarrassing.
I've gotten into arguments with my wife over it. I actually got this thing where I would do like this, where I would play with it, and she'd be like, "Shut up." So
you have ADHD.
I've gotten out of the habit of it. No, I do have obsessive compulsive tendencies, though. Not obsessive compulsive disorder, but paired with the Asperger's is obsessive compulsive tendencies. It's something that often comes up. Like last night, my wife and I were working on something, which I'll talk about in a minute. And it was like 7:30. The kids were having dinner, and my brain was just thinking about this thing that I was working on. I should have been stopping, but I couldn't. I needed to finish what I was doing so then I could relax.
Well, damn, I totally forgot what I was going to say, which is...
And there's the inattention.
Well, I'm so focused on what you're saying, I totally forget what I'm saying. You guys know me as someone who's pretty much not embarrassed to do anything. And for some reason, coming out with this whole ADHD thing has been incredibly mortifying to me. I feel like I'm a broken human. The doctor I saw yesterday did not help at all. He just looked at me like I was insane. Well, he's very old though. He's very dry. So it's interesting. And apparently I was telling Andy another symptom of ADHD is oversharing. And I think everyone here on the podcast knows everything about me.
Absolutely.
So we're at 599. We're almost to the 600 subscribers.
That's good.
So today we're actually we're talking about that simple trick that disempowers fear. And wait, that was my cool thing of this week. So that's what it was. The reason why this is cool is because I went onto the subreddit of ADHD, and even if I don't have it, I have found people that I relate to. And the first post I saw was, I'm the kind of kid that puts their homework in the backpack and not into a folder. And I was like, yeah, I do the exact same thing. I mean, I am a freaking mess when it comes to organization. And then just time management. Lisa, actually, whenever we have to go somewhere that's important, she tells me the appointment's actually 30 minutes earlier. And I'm honestly almost late for that. And the thing is, I realized she was doing it, but then I constantly forget that she's doing it. So it's just, Lisa has been a complete lifesaver through all of this. And when I say I'm embarrassed to tell you guys this stuff, I want to just shrivel up and go into a hole when I have to tell Lisa all this stuff. Because I feel like she thinks I'm a basket case, but she doesn't. She's been wonderful. But it's, Andy, you said you felt relief when you got diagnosed.
You know, it was a massive change for me. Just having this thing to put into context everything that I'd thought and felt. It was huge. And so, but you were talking about how you felt a bit mortified, and that is the reason that I have made it a point to be so forthcoming about my Asperger's syndrome, to talk about psychology, to include all of that kind of stuff into my writing, to make it a central part of who I am and what I talk about. I would say my author brand. It's because I kind of felt that same shame, or that same, not fear, maybe fear of rejection, that people, once they got that, once they heard that, they would be like, oh, weirdo, right? But that's something that's so antiquated. I love that society now is so much more open and embracing and acceptant of that, because it's so important. And the fact that so many people have it. Every time I send out an email talking about it, with my newsletter subscribers and my fans, I post about it. I get comments back, I get emails back, messages back saying, "Oh, my brother has this, my son has this, my daughter has this, I've got this." And every time it's like I feel a little bit less alone, because one more person out of the 7.7 or 7.8 billion people in the world is a little bit more like me than I thought before getting that email. And so, no matter how much of an outlier I am, because of the things that I have, there are other outliers that together we can all be outliers together in our own way. And so it brings this sort of sense of community that makes me feel so much better. Even just knowing that I'm not alone in my struggles. Like you said, going on that Reddit, you just saw all these other people. It just validated everything you'd felt. You're not insane for feeling like you can't focus, or like you're forgetting things, or whatever it is, that manifested in your life. You're not insane. You're not crazy. You're not defective. It's just that this thing is affecting you in a way that you hadn't expected. And so learning that, for me, it just took this massive weight off my shoulders.
This is going to blow you away too. Whenever I was on the Reddit, I was like, you know what? Everybody has a hard time focusing. Everybody has a hard time procrastinating. And then I looked up more of the symptoms, and imposter syndrome is a huge symptom of ADHD. And that, guys, I have been struggling with imposter syndrome, and I've been a writer for 3 years now, and make decent money with my books and stuff. And it's like Andy said, just, man, the sense of community, it felt so good, and I was surprised how good it felt. And it kind of like, in a funny way, like I had a new family, even though I'm not even diagnosed yet. Well, kind of diagnosed, ADD, not ADHD yet, but my doctor did say he thinks I have ADD, but it's not like on my charts yet. But I feel weird telling people that I want to be diagnosed with it. I want to think that's the problem, but I'm not going in. I'm going into these doctors' offices being 100% honest.
Yeah. I totally get that, though, because when you have an understanding of something, then it basically loses its fear. And this is the whole topic of today's conversation. Essentially, Stevie and I were emailing back and forth. He told me about this before, a few days ago, and it got me thinking about when I was first diagnosed with Asperger's. And so at the beginning, there was this, holy shit, there's something wrong with me, that comes with this diagnosis. And that's the stigma that comes with mental health issues that is so antiquated that thankfully the world is far less like that today. People are talking about it. People are embracing of it. It's being acknowledged on TV and movies, everything, right? It's so much more normal, because the truth is that massive amounts of people have it. I read the study done in Australia, 6,000 people, 6 or 7,000 people, only 17% of them had never suffered from mental health issues, be it chronic stress, depression, anxiety. Yeah, 17%. That means 83% of the world has suffered from mental health issues at some point in their life. Maybe it's just chronic stress, right? That's nasty. But then a lot of them have depression, they have anxiety, they have ADHD, they have autism, they have, there's something going on. So when I read that number in a scientific study, it just blew my mind. It was like, okay, there are so many other people out there that are like me in some way. And it made me feel far less of the freak that I initially thought I was. And so all of a sudden it took away a lot of the fear of Asperger's syndrome, or of this diagnosis as having this different brain. And this was this is sort of what led to the Different Not Damaged short story collection. Was that my brain was just different. It's not that there's some wiring that's just disconnected in my brain. It's just wired differently. And understanding that, it stole the fear. It took away so much of my fear of having Asperger's syndrome, of being autistic, of having obsessive compulsive tendencies. And so once I got that, once I was able to put a name to it, to quantify this thing that had been previously unquantifiable, it became far less terrifying. It took its power away. It disempowered the fear, quantifying it. And you're a Harry Potter guy, right, Steven?
Yeah, I love Harry Potter.
Do you remember the scene? I think it's in the second book with the boggart.
Yeah. It's your fear. Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah. Okay. Whichever one it is, there's the boggart, and it comes out. It manifests as your greatest fear, which is pretty terrifying,
That's crazy.
But then you give it the ridiculous spell, and it turns it into a ridiculous version, this parodized version of your greatest fear. And in a way, just being able to confront it in this way, with it's still very much your fear. It was still Severus Snape, but in a dress. It takes away a lot of the sting. And so being able to name the fear, whatever it is, in a way, it takes away some of its power. It makes it a boggart that you can look at and confront without being overwhelmed by fear. And so, yeah, exactly. Rebecca said it right. Truth is the great fear stealer. Just being able to understand and face it, to put it into words, does so much to decrease the fear.
When were you diagnosed with Asperger's?
2014, I think.
Oh wow, so it's pretty recent. You were an adult.
Yeah. You were absolutely. Yeah. I started going to therapy.
Was it like CBT?
I think 2013, 2014. I just went because I wanted to understand myself better. I didn't have any big emotional issues that needed dealing with, but I am a husband, a father. I was just getting into writing. Like, I wanted to better understand myself. So I started going to psychology, to therapy, and the psychologist, after a few sessions, she was like, I think that you have this, that you might have Asperger's syndrome. And so I did a lot of research into it, and I was like, whoa, a lot of that sounds really, really right. And so the more that we talked about it, the more she became convinced that it was that. And Asperger's syndrome is not one that's easily diagnosable. A lot of the autism syndromes have things in common, especially when it's as sort of low level as it is in me. It doesn't manifest visibly unless you get to know me. Once you get to know me, you'll be like, oh yeah, I see that. I see that. For the average person, if I sat across from you in a bar, you'd never know that. The night that we hung out in that bar in Austin, you never would have guessed it.
No idea.
Exactly. But now that we've known each other for a while, if I told you, okay, one of my things is that I have a hard time paying attention when something doesn't interest me, you'd probably say, yeah, I could see that. Just things like that. The more you get to know someone, the easier it is to see it. Just like I can see with you. Yeah, I can totally see your lack of attention because you go off on tangents like a boss.
Yeah. Wait, were you saying that you don't pay attention to things that don't interest you? Is that?
Yeah. That's one of the manifestations. That's one of the symptoms of Asperger's and also autism, is that when, of course, it's varying degrees depending on the grade or the severity or whatever the term is. People who have autism, they just have a hard time paying attention when the subject doesn't interest them. So they will stop listening in the middle of a conversation, or they will get up and walk away when someone else is talking. And it's just one of the things that make them, socially awkward, is that they don't get the dynamic of a conversation, or the dynamic of a conversation doesn't matter to them so much. You know, I don't have to sit here and listen to you talking about your day for an hour because it's not interesting. All I have to do is make sure that you know after a few minutes that I've been listening to you, and then I can say, hey, I've got to go do something else. And for someone like me, that's totally acceptable. So once I've come to understand that, then it's okay. Now I've got to take steps to pay attention, to listen, to force myself to engage. And so, but this is kind of what I was thinking, is that once I learned about Asperger's, I could take steps to deal with it. And now when I say Asperger's, it's not like, you know, like you said, mortified. It's who I am. I'll tell people about it. It's not like, hi, I'm Andy and I have Asperger's. It's not the first thing I say, but it's not something that I hide from either. So right now you just got this potential diagnosis. You just got this term, right? That you're just starting to learn how it could or could not be affecting your life. So right now you're just in the beginning of it. Maybe it's big, maybe it's scary, whatever. But then the more you get into it, the more you learn about it, the more you confront it, the less power it's going to have over you. You know that you have trouble paying attention. So by 6 months or a year from now, you'll have come up with 10 methods that will help you pay attention. You know that you have imposter syndrome. So you'll start learning to, change your self-talk so you no longer have it. Whatever the case is, right now you're at step 1. In a year, 2 years, you're going to be much closer to where I am now in my journey, and it will have lost so much of its power over you. And
what we'll do is we'll write another Contagious Not Broken. What was your book?
Different Not Damaged.
Contagious Not Broken.
That sounds like the coronavirus story.
Oh God, yeah. But then it won't get done because I won't do my part. And when you said you went to a therapist, for some reason I just pictured like you becoming his therapist. That's what I pictured. Like you guys switched roles like mid therapy.
Oh no. I don't consider myself a therapist. I love people. I learn a lot about people just because as a writer, you have to understand who you're writing about. So I spend a lot of time asking questions about people to get in their heads, to understand their mindset. But I'm so far from being a therapist.
Well, we actually didn't get to your cool thing of the week.
Well, we can keep going on with this. Okay. And then when we finish, I will talk about my cool thing of the week.
Well, quick fun joke. I have been saying that you have autism. It's Asperger's.
No. Asperger's is one of the various syndromes under the umbrella of autism.
Is it? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Autism spectrum disorder is this big spectrum of disorders, essentially. And they give it this big umbrella term because like some of it is harder to quantify. It's difficult to sort of niche, put someone in a niche because maybe they have one syndrome symptoms and then symptoms from another one. And then, it's one of the harder ones to diagnose because a lot of the symptoms don't manifest visibly.
What's scary is trying to, because I did some research on bipolar because the doctor brought that up and I was like, I don't have mood swings, but I did research anyway because I'm concerned. I want to fix this issue.
Yeah.
And I found something really interesting, and that is the hardest person to diagnose with bipolar is a female teenager. And it was fascinating to me because they go through that puberty area where they have mood swings, I guess.
Yeah.
And they can't tell whether it's bipolar. And then they start them on an SRI, and which can change your life. It can change.
SSRI?
Yeah, SSRI. Okay. Yeah. So I just thought that was really interesting. And man, I'm so glad I'm not a psychiatrist because I don't think I have the mental organization to listen to somebody's problems and be like, yeah, you hit all these checklists and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's an incredibly complex field. I mean, it takes 10 years till you can be a practicing psychologist.
Are you serious?
So you can have your own practice. I think you start getting your practicum earlier on, but it's like it's medical school and then it's, specialized and it's a big career.
Damn, it took
yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. My wife is actually really interested in it. And now that our kids are older, she was looking into it. And she was like, 10 years is a long time.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I guess you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Is that the saying? Okay. Because I think last time I said eat out an elephant. Remember?
Yes.
Was that with you?
Unfortunately, I do remember that.
Oh, yeah. So you said you have something to combat fear. Right? Because I'm interested in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What is that?
So the first step, the simple trick that the title is all about. It's a little clickbaity title, but I'm okay with that. The trick, the first step towards combating your fear is quantifying it, right? Putting a name on it. Once there's a name on it, then you can figure out what it is, right? You know that it's like let's say with ADHD, you have a hard time paying attention. You know that there's XXX symptoms, right? So you start understanding it. You may not be able to control it yet, but at least you understand it. Then you take steps to combat it, to gain some measure of control over it. You take one small step and then another one and then another one until eventually you've got it not under control, but you figured out how to live with it. And that is the whole process that started when you can put a name on something. Once I learned that I had Asperger's syndrome, right? I knew that eye contact was difficult. It still is to this day. I still struggle with eye contact. Yeah, absolutely. I still feel uncomfortable looking at someone in the face because when I'm looking at them, number one, I don't know where to look, right? I have no idea where the average neurotypical, where on their face they look. So then I'm like, all right, if I look at the wrong place for too long, they're going to think I'm staring when really I'm just paying attention. So then it feels weird. So then I have a hard time looking at them because of this sort of anxiety that I get because I don't want to be perceived as weird because I know that I am weird in the sense that I have this atypical neurology. So it's something that you're both aware of and not really able to do anything about at the same time. So I still struggle with it. So I'll look at someone like right here, on the bridge of their nose. I don't know if that's the right place to look. I'll try to look at them one eye at a time, or I'll look at, like over here or something right behind them. But it's difficult. I still have a hard time locking on when talking to someone. But I know this. I know that this is a side effect or a symptom of what's going on in my brain. So when I'm doing it, it's not like this behavior that I don't understand. It's a behavior that I'm fully cognizant of, so I can try to combat it. I will stare longer at this spot between someone's eye because I believe that's the right place to look at them, or I'll feel my eye shifting away and I'll turn it back, and I will just force myself to stop worrying about whether or not they think I'm staring. It's just they're talking to me. I've got to look at them. That's the best I can do. So by doing this, by understanding how it manifests, it stops being something you're afraid of or anxious about. It's just part of who you are, or part of, whatever wiring is connected differently in your brain. And then it's far less, like it doesn't cause the anxiety, it doesn't make you anxious like it used to, or far less.
Would you say that knowing the enemy is like half the battle, as they say, so you can actually start learning to being aware of it? Would you say that's pretty important then?
Absolutely. Sun Tzu absolutely applies to this one. Know your enemy and know yourself, right? The man who knows themselves is already halfway to winning the battle, or whatever, however the quote goes. You know who you are, what you've got going on in your brain, right? And it's the same thing with emotions you're afraid of, right? Or your fears, fear of the dark, fear of heights, fear of the water, fear of sharks, whatever it is. Once you know yourself, once you're honest with yourself about what you have, or once you've got this way of quantifying what you've got going on, these things, then you're already halfway, or you're already well along the battle, because you've got a step you can take. You're afraid of heights. Okay, how do I get rid of fear of heights? Just being able to ask that question is the second step forward. And then you do research to see, okay, how do other people combat it? Whether it's going somewhere high and forcing themselves to look over, or cognitive behavioral therapy, or starting small with small heights and working your way, whatever it is, whatever people do, this is the third step. You're gathering information. And then you take the fourth step, making a decision of what you're going to do, and then going and doing it. And the fifth step, adjusting and adapting, and then continue. And right there, you're already many, many farther steps farther than you were a few minutes ago. So this is the one thing that I would say changed my life in an absolutely massive way, is just being able to quantify this thing, to put a name to it.
It's weird when you tell me that. I get like jealous because I want that understanding. And actually, the way you described, conquering fear is actually how I teach people to surf. We start at the small waves. We tackle it a little by little, and a lot of these fears are they're not even needed. I guess I can't remember the word, but off topic. Andy, what is your worst fear?
I feel like fear of rejection is a big one. Yeah,
fear. That's hard for an author.
Is a big one. No, it's actually, or I've come to terms with that aspect. It's more rejection of me as a person that I struggle with.
Wow, really interesting. Yeah. That's a big fear.
Well, so I've always been what I like to call a relationship guy, right?
Okay.
I have no problem committing to someone, because it's easier to commit to them knowing they're committing to me than trying to go out into the world and be rejected again and again and again and again and again. So this is what I won't complain about it, because I've been happily together with my girlfriend / wife / fiance, whatever you want to call her, for almost 11 years now. And we've got an amazing life. And I would say, looking back, I wouldn't change anything. But looking back, I can understand that. I can understand how not my fear of being alone, because I'm perfectly content being alone, with myself, with my thoughts, with my hobbies. But that fear of being rejected by someone who I found attractive or interesting is a huge thing for me. So that's probably one of the biggest fears, like, in my life, like, overall.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mine is a little bit more silly, I guess. I'm definitely afraid of getting my blood drawn, and I had to get my blood drawn yesterday. When he told me, I just felt like all the blood rush out of my face, and I'm extremely terrified of it. In fact, the first time I went a couple months ago, I had to get it done, and they say I have trauma. I have PTSD with needles. Which I didn't know was possible,
Interesting.
And so this time they sit my ass down in that freaking room, and it's just like the whole ritual. I'm freaking out. And this black lady comes in. She goes, "You all right, sugar? You all white? You're all white." And I was like, "I don't feel really well." And she's like, "When's the last time you eat?" And I was like, 9 hours.
Yeah.
She's like, "Well, you're going to get a little loopy." And then they poked me. This other woman poked me, and she didn't get the vein. And she was digging in there, and she's like, "You want me to try and poke you again?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't know." And so she went to the other arm and got it right, but they had to walk me to a bed and lay me down because I was about to pass out. And not because of the blood drawn, just because it was a traumatic experience for me. And it's when people just say, "Oh, it's not that bad. It's just a little prick." It's like, it's not really bad. It's what is that fear that doesn't make sense? It's irrational. It's an irrational fear.
But it is but it's tied to something.
Yeah, when I was little.
Tied to what happened?
I was put in the hospital for a very rare stomach disease. Actually, years later, it comes to find out it was a fatal disease that they were able to get a cure for. And I actually remember them injecting me with it. I don't know what it was. Some weird stomach flu, like super painful. But I remember they had to give me an IV, and they couldn't get it. They kept they stuck it in my forearm, the crevice of my arm, and I started crying. And my mom, who's a nurse practitioner, came, is like, "Let me do it." And she got it the first time. And that's where the trauma started. I'll always remember that day. It was like at 2:00 in the morning, because they had to inject me with put whatever in the IV. So it's all of that mixed together just made that traumatic experience.
It's not that you're actually afraid of the needles. It's you're afraid of the pain. You're afraid of getting hurt.
Yeah.
And that's and it's this memory that imprinted on you as a child. And so that is what you're afraid of. You're afraid of that pain that you had no control over. So that's the whole thing of PTSD, is it's this massive trauma or whatever imprinted on your brain so strongly that it recurs. And so just being able to quantify it as this trauma, maybe you'll never get over it, maybe you will. But just being able to say, okay, this is what it's tied to. Maybe next time you go in, you'll be in this, you'll have sort of put it into words, into a way that you can understand. You'll be thinking, okay, I have been afraid of this in the past. Now, can I face it here, knowing that it's a fear that's based on this thing, but take steps to change this pattern you have in your brain? You know that there's going to be pain associated with it, but you've been in pain in other things in your life. You know, you've been in pain at the gym. You've been in pain from martial arts. You've been in pain from, you know, whatever it is. You've had pain in your life. So pain isn't the end all and be all. It's just a little prick, a couple maybe if it's bad, but you know, so the pain's not the thing. You know that it's this memory from when you were a kid. So then, okay, this is something that I can separate myself from or not. But being able to understand what's causing it, maybe next time you go in, it will be just that little bit easier for you to get your blood drawn without it, or maybe not.
It's gotten better, but every time I go, they have to like try both arms. I just typed in the chat that I hadn't drank any water, so I was really dehydrated, so my veins were really small. And so they just have to keep slapping it, which I don't like that either. But yeah, I think it's getting a little bit better. But are you did you come up with this idea like off the, or was this the other authors, the guest authors?
This was based off of the emails we were having about your ADHD, because the conversation we were going to have with the guest was super awesome too. But then I was like, all right, well, we got to talk for an hour. So what are we going to talk about? And I had just written something about, I just sent out that email about, you know, the top 10 fears. And so it was kind of on my brain, you know, the whole concept of fear and the things in my life that make me afraid, or that, you know, the fears that could hold me back. Right. And how I have confronted them, or how I have overcome them, or how I continue to struggle with them. And so that's what made me think of this topic.
Man, that's freaking so. Actually, with the writing, I think I find myself putting these themes inside of it. Either numb your trigger via desensitization, or with the trigger completely and just get the shot.
So there's always the thing that triggers the fear response. And so desensitization is like exposure therapy, where you confront it, right? You face it head on. You go and you look at that needle or whatever. You go get your blood drawn with the intention of confronting the fear, or you just avoid the trigger.
It sucks because as an adult, you have to do it. You have to do it. You have to get your blood drawn. I'm going to get it done again. The funny thing is, so ADHD is you forget things. You forget things often. And I have skin numbing cream just for that occasion. And I had it sitting out and everything, and I just totally forgot it. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, Stevie, come on. But I do find myself writing these themes into my characters. I feel like I'm able to give a more realistic mental approach. So when bad things happen, I feel like I'm able to give a surprisingly realistic approach, because I have experienced these. And I think it might throw people off because I'm this funny author, this funny guy, and then, you know, something bad happens in the books. And I think I do relatively well with trying to convey it. You know, like in the Four Territories, I battled some pretty big things in that book for a first book, for someone who like the loss of a father. That was weird. And just the big thing, it's always anxiety. I see that theme a lot. And it's the waiting. So whenever Makeo in book 3 is about to go and battle, he's anxious because he has to wait a whole day before the battle that could end his life. So it's interesting bringing it to. I'm trying to bring it to books, I guess, is what I was doing. But it's as an author, I feel like we're very vulnerable.
Absolutely, because you're putting this little piece of yourself into the characters. But then I guess understanding yourself and then people, it helps you make these characters so much more real. I mean, understanding that there are these fears that govern everybody's life, or that could hold people back from doing things, once you've got that understanding, then you start looking for those things. You look for the fear that stops this character from saying something, or the fear that stops this character from taking action when they know they should. Or, like there's so many different things. There's the fear of getting hurt, so people protect themselves, both physically and emotionally. They clam up when they should be talking and saying the thing that will, solve the problem. This is one thing that I hate about like shows like Grey's Anatomy. I watch this one with my wife every week pretty religiously. She loves it. I've kind of gotten into it, but I hate it. They have this argument. The characters clash, and then one of them walks away, and the other person doesn't say anything to try and explain or to solve the problem. They just stand there silent. And it pisses me off. So like when I wrote The Silent Champions, I made sure that every chance the characters got to say something, they did. And anytime that I wanted the argument to end without, sort of on the misunderstanding note, an external force was the one, whether, they were attacked or all of a sudden, they faced a new enemy or whatever. But it wasn't like the characters were indecisive and hesitant and so self-protective. And that's one thing that I've noticed about all of the shows that Shonda Rhimes does, is that the characters always do that. They always stand silent while the other person walks away, and then only like at the end of the episode, to sort of tie everything up in a neat bow, do they have the important conversations they could have had at the beginning of the episode and avoided the whole thing. So that's just manufactured drama, and it's shitty, and I hate it. So that's one thing that's probably my greatest pet peeve in a character, is when there's this fear and they don't even take a step to confront it. Not that they're paralyzed by it, because that paralyzation by fear is absolutely acceptable, right? It is the response to fear, right? You see the needle and you freeze, or you go pale, or you go woozy, right? This is your body's response, your mind's response. But if you sit there and do nothing, and you don't respond at all, or you respond negatively, then in a way that sort of like when a character does that in a book or in a movie or a TV show, it loses my respect for the character, and it makes it harder for me to empathize or connect with them. Whereas this is something that I always try to do in my characters, is that there is something terrifying. Like in today, my character Nolan, right? He got shot to shit to where he nearly died. His armor's destroyed. He's got a gun that's not effective against the guy he's facing. The guy he's facing is stronger, faster, smarter, and more vicious. And he knows the terrain, and he's not wounded and bleeding out, right? So you know that Nolan's got a shitty battle ahead where he's probably going to die. He knows this. He says this. He didn't like it, but he still stands up to fight the battle. And that single act, even though he's probably going to get his ass kicked, or he knows he's going to get his ass kicked, that is what makes me respect a character and connect with them. And that is the one thing that I look for in myself. It's one thing I try to demand of myself as a person, and it's one thing that I look for in other people, in my friends. I try not to make my wife do it, but I hope that she does it, when she's got a fear, or my kids, when there's something that they're afraid of, or that's threatening to hold them back, or that renders them paralyzed, just taking that one step forward or making that decision to try to combat the fear, that earns my respect, even if the fear still continues to paralyze them, or it's impossible or super difficult to get over. Just knowing that they are confronting it in even some tiny way, that's enough for me to say you're on the right path. And it's not about how fast you do it, just forward progress.
Does Grey's Anatomy bother you because you don't find it realistic that they're not conquering these fears, or you just don't like people who don't?
Well, so as someone who has had many, many arguments with his wife, my wife will storm into the bedroom and say, you did this, you did something bad. I'm not just going to sit there and say, oh, wait till she storms out and then come back an hour later. No, I'm going to argue right back. I'm going to say, yes, I did. No, I didn't, whatever it is. And so I find that super unrealistic when the character will march in, accuse something, the character doesn't defend themselves, or they go they don't say, well, here's my reason why. Here's why I did what I did. That right there could defuse the tension immediately, right? Or it would put things into context and make it easier to understand. But it's only at the end of the episode that they have that conversation. And so I hate that, because I like, me as a person, if someone does something, I'm always looking for the reasons why to try to understand them. So if my wife slaps me, walks up to me, slaps me, no reason, I'm going to be pissed. Now she says, hey, I saw that you did this. Okay, maybe I deserve that slap. All of a sudden, the context shifts. Obviously, I don't do anything that deserves slaps. I am an absolute angel.
I was going to ask. If you've been slapped before.
I have, but never like that by my wife. It doesn't happen.
Oh, okay.
I'm not wearing this long sweater to hide the bruises or anything.
Oh man, that's great. So, man, it's been a roller coaster though, but it's good to be back on the Fantasy Fiends podcast. And a quick update about the books. They're coming along. I'm not writing as much as I should be, but once I get over all this crap, it's going to be so much better. Andy, where are you? Like on book 90 yet?
Not yet. Book 4.
Book 4. Okay, Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
Are they like?
So this is actually going to be fear of failure, right? That is probably one of the biggest thing that affects my work habits. The one thing that I'm dreading more than anything else is having to stop being a writer and having to go back to finding a job, because number one, I have a high school diploma and no real life work experience, right? Like seriously, I could apply as security because I'm big. I could work at, McDonald's because I can, I'm menial labor. But if I ever had to get a real job, I have no real experience. I don't have any education in writing. So basically, I'm faking it till I'm making it, and thankfully, I'm making it thus far. But my biggest fear when it comes to my professional life is that I will fail, that the books will stop selling, that my ideas will not dry up, but they won't resonate with people as well as the previous ones, or that. So I work super hard because I may never be that really great writer, but I will always be that writer that works his ass off. And so that was one of the major sources of stress for me all of last year, where it was just like hauling ass. I think I wrote 1.3 million words last year. Like ridiculous. I wrote a lot of books. No, it was the year before, I think, that I wrote that many. But I like the Silent Champion series clocked in at 970,000 words, and I wrote 800,000 of those last year alone. And then I wrote four Cerberus books, each 80 to 90,000 words, and then the prequel, right? So we're talking a good chunk of word. And man, it was nonstop work. And I was pushing myself and forcing myself to work. And it was building up this anxiety to where I was dreading working, because I knew how much it was going to require of me to write these chapters. And I didn't want to just do a small amount. I wanted to do a big amount. I wanted to be the guy that everybody knew was the one who wrote like a beast, right? It's sort of this perception of myself that I felt I needed to be. But then at the end of last year, beginning of this year, I was struggling to write the last March, the 6th book in the Silent Champion series. And so I think we talked about this, where it was just like, I could not figure it out. I couldn't get it. It just wasn't flowing, which has never happened to me before. All of my books have always, come out pretty well in the end. And that was when I came to realize that I was pushing myself too hard for the wrong reasons. I push myself hard every day, but I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it because I was so afraid of failing. So now I have made the choice I've sacrificed 2 of my work shifts a week to go to the gym, not fitting it in around my work whenever I can. Tuesday morning from 11 to 1 and Thursday morning from 7 to 9, both primetime work slots. I walk away and I go to the gym for an hour and a half just to make sure that I've sort of put that priority more on my life balance as well as my work balance. And so could face understanding what was going wrong, that I was working too hard for the wrong reasons. Now I can take steps to confront it and combat it.
So fear is something that in the past has been something that helps you to move forward.
Oh, absolutely.
It's still one.
Oh, it's fear is something you face every day to varying degrees. I will say anybody, even the most competent person with the most stable job, will have fear of something at their work. If not about their work, it'll be something at home. There's always something that we're afraid of because the mind thrives on fear. Fear is what drives creativity, ingenuity. It's what drives change. Like fear is the probably one of the greatest forces in the universe because we are all afraid of something. So we do whatever we can to get away from it. People who grew up poor, like me, fight their asses off to be rich so they never have to go back to that. Yeah. People who, like me, who may not have skills for a normal job, find something and they cling to it because it's what they know and they're afraid to find out what else there is. So there's fear is something that rules every one of our lives to varying degrees. Now, I am the kind of person who, or I tell myself that I'm the kind of person who will face my fears and start working through them one step at a time. I will never get over them. There will always be some fear in my life. But if I can at least take steps to combat them, to push through them, to live despite them, I feel like that's the excellence that is expected of me. That is my standard of excellence.
I was going to say, I think fear is a pretty big driving force of me too. It's just, I guess where the frustration comes is when I sit down at the computer to work, I get so frustrated, and it's not that I go procrastinate and play video games. No, I will go sit down, and what made the doctor worried was when I told him I just look at the ceiling and I just want to cry out of frustration because I can't do it. And I guess they were expecting me to say, like, I go and, play video games or I read a book. No, I don't. I seriously go sit down and just ask myself why, honestly, Andy, I compare myself a lot to you. And it's like, why can Andy do all this stuff? Why can he sit down and do all this stuff? Jonathan Yanez has a great work ethic. He gets up at 6 o'clock and writes at the right time. And I was like, there's no way. I write not the same hour every day. It's different. So like it could be 8 o'clock in the morning. It could be midnight the next day. It's just how I work. I have to wait until inspiration hits. And even then, sometimes it's not enough. And that really scares me. And that's why, in the past, painkillers stimulated me and I could focus. Yeah. And that's scary because fuck painkillers.
Yeah. For real. Dude. But that's another fear or another aspect, another way the fear manifests itself is that you're not good enough. Fear of inadequacy, right? Mm-hmm. Why would someone want to read your stuff if you're not good enough, if your stories aren't good enough? So you work harder to tell better stories, but there's always that doubt in your mind. Are my stories good enough? And something, I've written 28 books by now, give or take. No, I've written more than 30 books in my life. Right. And I still struggle with it. I still struggle with this feeling of, is it good enough? I was talking with Regine a few weeks ago, and I was afraid when I asked the question, does my character Nolan read like a special forces guy? Does he read like a soldier? Because I have no idea. All I can do is as much research as I can. And I was afraid of his answer because I was afraid he was going to say no. I was that fear of inadequacy. It was this little churning in my stomach. And he said, yeah, it reads great. He might have no idea that I was feeling so terrified by that. And hopefully he didn't. but
now he does.
Yeah. Now he does. now he does. You can't hold that against me. Yeah. But that's the thing is, so my way of combating fears is understanding. The more knowledge I can obtain about something I'm afraid of, or something that makes me anxious, the more I feel like I have some semblance of control over it. It's one reason that I do a shit ton of research for whatever I do. And I talk to people and I ask questions, and it's always to understand it. That's my approach. That's my way that I structure stories. I gotta know everything about the story, about the chapter, about the outline, the structure, so that I can face this fear of, is my writing going to be good enough with a clear conscience and a clean head? Yours is going to be totally different. Maybe you don't have the same fears that I do because you don't have the emotional difficulties that I do. I know that one of the symptoms of Asperger's syndrome is a difficulty empathizing with people, and like a lot of people have this, like imagine if your emotions go from 1 to 20, mine will go from 5 to 15, or it'll go from 7 to 12. I know that I don't have the full complement of emotions, or at least not as not exaggerated, but as grand a scale as some people do. My wife's life, I'm just checking to make sure she's not listening, is this roller coaster of highs and lows, right? I'm like a dead person. I like my life is pretty straight. There's good stuff that happens and I love it, but it's not like these, oh my God, everything is amazing, and oh my God, everything is terrible. It's like, cool. Oh, that's kind of the extent of my ups and downs.
And
so
she's a swing. She swings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And her life can be incredibly rich because of it, and I envy that. And then her life can be absolutely miserable because of it, and I'm so glad that I don't have that. So everybody's spectrum of fears, everybody's spectrum of emotions, everybody's spectrum of intelligence or knowledge. Everybody is living with their own toolbox, and comparing your toolbox to someone else's gives you that anxiety that makes you feel less than. It makes you feel inadequate, or like you don't measure up. And that's the one thing I would say that I have consciously taken steps to counteract, is this comparing myself negatively or positively. I love feeling like I'm better than somebody else. But if that's if my sole purpose or my sole interaction with someone is, yeah, I feel better than you, that's the wrong way to do it.
Oh yeah.
I look at Yanez and I look at his success and I look at the things that he's done and the life that he has. And I'm like, damn, man, I wish I could have that, but I'm not him. I'm not in his situation. And so thinking like that is just going to make my life seem worse by comparison. So changing that mindset of, all right, my life is going to be as good as I can make it. I'm going to make my life the best it can, regardless of what other people is doing. That's all I can do.
Dude, you should write a book. I love that, man. That's wow. Today has been a topic. It has been a tough topic. And but did you have something cool this week?
Yeah. So I mean, it's not cool yet, but it is cool in the future. I mean, aside from the fact that hopefully tomorrow I will be finished with the first draft of Cerberus Book 4, which has been tons of fun. It's Nolan versus outer space, and Nolan versus or like paraplegic versus paraplegic, or disabled versus disabled.
I just pictured two wheelchairs hitting each other.
Well, that was kind of the thing, is like, so this guy, he's got, his legs are paralyzed. So he's got this suit of armor that works for him. So take away his suit of armor. How does he react? Now he faces someone else who is disabled just like him. How is he going to fight? So it's interesting to it's almost like a mirror image. Every single one of my books in a way has some sort of mirror image, where the last one was AI versus AI. The next one is, well, the next one's not a mirror image, but then book 6 is Special Forces Sniper versus Special Forces Sniper. So I cool. I like those kind of things, because it's like, it's basically forcing him to confront something about himself that needs work, in essence.
Awesome, man.
But
what's up?
But the cool news in the future is that I will be getting on Instagram.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like I just created my author profile, I don't know, yesterday or the day before, and there is nothing to it yet. So I'm not even going to be, promoting it or mentioning it. But I am starting to do the work of preparing a bunch of content, stuff that I've posted on my blog, stuff that I posted to my newsletter, new stuff, book reviews. I'll take clips from the Fantasy Fiends podcast, just short videos and stuff. I'm going to be doing a ton of stuff on Instagram, but I want to prepare it all in advance, because, it's easier to do it when everything is done in advance. So over the next month, I'll be preparing a bunch of content that I will start posting to Instagram. I'm super excited to try this new visual medium that hopefully will be a great way to grow and expand. So I guess stay tuned because I'll be talking about that once it's officially up and running.
Cool. Actually, good news that I have, which I forgot to say, was that I have the final book cover for Metal Fury.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's good. It's very light though. So the book is lighthearted. Jonathan writes pretty clean stuff, and clean is the word I would use. Like, I can't really cuss. I think crap is as far as I can go. But in my books, I usually have the F word in like 4 times, somewhere like that. It's like a rated R movie. His are kind of like PG-13. And the book cover kind of resembles that, and it's nice. I really like it. I think it's cool. It's unique. It's definitely unique. But I can't show it to anybody yet, which kills me. Oh, it's killing me. I don't like having it. He should never have showed it to me unless I could have showed it to people. Yeah. But we're still focusing on releasing in April.
Awesome. That's when mine's coming out too.
Yeah, it's I'm excited. I think Jonathan's excited, and then Andy and I have been in talks, I feel like we're like directors,
yeah.
Doctor Strange 2, right?
Yeah.
They're in talks of that movie now.
With Sam Raimi.
Yeah, I love Doctor Strange, so
yeah.
I love me some Strange.
Yeah.
You get it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it for this Fantasy Fiends podcast. Andy, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think people heard me say it enough times that the best way to start getting over your fears is to quantify it, to put a name to it, then understand it, then figure out how you can overcome it and start doing it. Do that. Beautiful. You're already halfway down the path.
Well said. And where can people find you? Oh, and if you want to,
right here every week, armchair, whatever, intelligent person on the Fantasy Fiends podcast.
Intelligent person. And if you want to have some fun, go watch episode 1 and just, Jesus, dude, I was a freaking geek.
Yeah, that was awesome. I know. Oh, very, very important thing to mention that I forgot to mention is that on my merchandise web store, you can now find wanted posters for the Hunter and Alana, which are super, super cool.
Whoa, do you go to andypeliquin.com?
No, it's on Three Furies Press.
Who does that? It sounds familiar.
That's Rebecca.
I thought, okay, Three Fury. How do you spell that?
ThreeFuries.com. Like furries, but with only one R, Stevie. Putting it in a way you'd understand.
Actually, when she sent me that over, I thought it was 3 furries. I was like, okay, that makes sense. It didn't pull up real quick. So 3 Furies, THRE.
3 Furies Press.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to check that out, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you guys coming to hang out with us today. That is it for this Fantasy Fiends podcast. We will be back next Thursday with hopefully our guest this time.
With my nemesis.
Who's your nemesis?
JT Williams.
Oh, yeah. We've had him on before, right?
We have. He's awesome.
Oh, dude, we've had him on twice now.
Yeah. So he's the third time. EMT. The
What's
paramedic.
That?
He was the paramedic.
That's right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next Thursday with Andy's nemesis.
Have a good night.
Bye.